Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. This is Don from the Defion Productions podcast, hardest working nobody in Bitcoin. Today is November 14th, 2024, 11:05 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Bitcoin has done a lot of fun things the last week or so. Currently, the price is sitting at 87,943. We're actually down about 5% from 24 hours ago at this time, so we're having a little bit of a pullback. ETH is at 3,084. Looks like the total market cap of crypto right now is 2.91. Bitcoin's total market cap is 1.74 trillion, which is making up just shy of 60% dominance for BTC. We got 24-hour volume of 276.44 billion as stated by CoinMarketCap, and our Fear and Greed Index right now is still at extreme greed at 84. Looks like we just went over 88,000. We're at 88,037 in Bitcoin. We did reach we reached multiple new all-time highs in the past couple of days. After the Trump win last Tuesday, we saw the price start to move as we have heard some pro-Bitcoin language that people associated with the Trump administration, or people we believe to be associated with the Trump administration, have been saying. The prices continue to move. The Bitcoin strategic reserve conversation is gaining some steam, which I think is helping this price action. Senator Loomis has been just about every day. I want to say nonstop, but it just seems like it to me. She's probably tweeting about other things, but she's tweeted a lot about the bill that she put forth in regards to putting Bitcoin on the strategic reserve balance sheet of the United States government. People associated with the Trump team, many of them are pro-crypto, pro-Bitcoin. So the steam is kind of moving forward in regards to how pro-Bitcoin this administration is going to be. Equities are moving positively, so it looks like all assets are just kind of like moving up, even though today, like I said, we're having a little bit of a pullback, a little bit of a breather, down right around 5% in the 24. When I got up this morning around 7:30, the price was around 90. So we're down probably around 2,000 at least since I got up, hovering around the 88K right now. A lot of things have been said on mainstream media stations in the last couple of days, and we're going to cover some of those things today. We'll talk more about that Bitcoin strategic reserve. Ross Ulbricht's account has been tweeting that he's been in contact with Trump's team. He's very optimistic and very confident that they're going to follow through on their promise to release him. There's even been talk that he could that could be one of the first executive orders that he signs on day one, potentially releasing Ross Ulbricht. So that would be amazing if that happened. But it seems more and more likely that he's going to probably be released under this Trump administration. He's going to keep that promise to the Bitcoin community, which I think will go very far in the community being loyal and supportive to Trump as a result of that. Vivek Ramaswamy and Elon Musk and others have created what they're calling Doge. It's going to the main purpose is for them to be cutting the fat on spending by the federal government, which I think is a very tall task. Obviously Vivek and Elon are uber successful businessmen, and they've run very successful businesses. Elon, multiple successful multi-billion-dollar businesses. So they've been tweeting, Elon more so, their plans to cut the fat in government spending, and even gone as far to say that they plan to cut many government jobs, almost basically in half, and get rid of a lot of the waste that is being spent by the government and try to make it more efficient, which I think is never a bad idea. They've even created a Twitter account. I think Elon created it, and it's DOGE, Doge, D.O.G.E. And I followed it last night, and as of last night, it had like 170,000 followers already, and I think it was just created yesterday, which is kind of wild. I guess it's not surprising because Elon has like 50 million followers on X. So it's probably a lot of once he retweeted, a lot of people probably jumped in and started following it. Dennis Porter, who has been he's been pretty piped in things, at least on behind the curtains legislation. He was the guy to break the news. We talked about it a couple weeks ago with Pennsylvania putting someone on their constitution in regards to digital assets and Bitcoin specifically. He tweeted late last night at 11:43 p.m. rumors that I keep hearing. Multiple cabinet picks support a Bitcoin strategic reserve, which I don't find very. I don't think that's too surprising from all the things that I've been seeing. Multiple countries are buying Bitcoin and haven't announced it. I've been hearing rumblings of that and rumors of that. Max Kaiser's been talking about Qatar potentially. They've been buying Bitcoin for the past couple of months and putting it in their sovereign wealth fund, and it just hasn't been released yet. So that wouldn't be too surprising if we heard that they were doing that. But I guess there's multiple countries, so there might be some that we haven't heard of that are doing the same. 5+ countries are looking to pass Bitcoin reserve laws. I don't know necessarily which countries he'd be referring to, but that would be big. And then the other thing, 10+ states will be introducing strategic Bitcoin reserve legislation similar to Pennsylvania. So that would make up 1/5 of the entire, more than 1/5 with Pennsylvania already having it. So more than 1/5 of the entire United States would have strategic Bitcoin legislation if that were to come to fruition. So it seems like the headwinds are moving towards Bitcoin going even more mainstream than it kind of already has. I know it seems like Bitcoin's mainstream, but it still really isn't. Like the total adoption of the 8 billion people on the planet still remains very, very low. It's definitely still in single digits. So even though you're hearing more and more, you turn on CNBC and they have it on a ticker, or you hear people coming on and speaking about it, or they're asking random people how they feel about it, we're still super early. And I know that's weird and that's hard sometimes for people to conceptualize, but even at 88, 90 plus Bitcoin, 90 plus K Bitcoin, we're still relatively early. I can see on the screen somebody put buying more Bitcoin at the dip. Michael Saylor says he'll be buying the top forever. So you're if you're constantly buying Bitcoin, you're buying the dips, you're buying the tops, you're just continuing to buy. I always talk about the dollar cost average strategy that I've used throughout my entire time with Bitcoin. There are times I'll buy more than others, and there are other times where I won't buy as much as others or add as much as others, but there is no rhyme or reason. I do typically, in the past, I try to look for double-digit red days to be the days that I buy more, that I add more. But a day like today, it's down 5%. It would be a good spot to as the market is easing, to add more Satoshis. It's never a bad thing to do. And again, I'm buying for the super long term, where I don't expect to sell any of my Bitcoin for my personal gain. I'm stacking for my family. So just continuing to add regardless of the price is just kind of the strategy that I've been doing for a long time now. Because Bitcoin.com tweeted about an hour ago, or actually hour and a half ago, this is kind of ironic. SEC Chair Gary Gensler urges the crypto community to comply with rules, as it appears that his time leading the agency is coming to a potential end. I don't think it's coming to a potential end. I think it's coming to a definite end. I think there's no way that Donald Trump keeps him on as SEC chair. Not even because Donald Trump necessarily doesn't like him, but with Trump embracing the Bitcoin/crypto community as much as he has, the Bitcoin crypto community has no love for Gary Gensler. And there's been many cries for Gary Gensler to be fired. So I think Trump will be picking somebody else to head the SEC. I think Gensler's days are numbered, and I think the companies and corporations and businesses that are crypto focused or Bitcoin focused that have been on pins and needles for the past 4 years because of Gensler can kind of breathe easy and kind of just not even listen to what Gensler's saying, because even if he was to file something now, he isn't going to be here by the time anything gets litigated. So it's a lot of just hot air with Gensler at this point. His time is definitely, in my opinion, numbered at the SEC. He will not be the SEC chair come 2025 when Trump takes the oath of office. I'm not a big fan of Gary Gensler in regards to how he's treated our industry. So it won't be for in regards to the Bitcoin aspect of things. Nobody's going to be shedding any tears over Gary Gensler losing his job as the chair of the SEC, especially being how we felt very tricked by his disingenuous language that he used when he talked about Bitcoin or crypto, especially with his background prior to coming into SEC chair job as being the guy that taught the class at MIT on Bitcoin and digital assets. And then all of a sudden he forgot all that when he got the job and couldn't tell us what a security was or wasn't, and couldn't tell us what Bitcoin was or wasn't, couldn't tell us what Ethereum was or wasn't, and was just super like the vaguest you could potentially be in regards to rules and regulations, while also going after people for breaking those vague rules and regulations that nobody knew what they were. I think especially, I can't speak to the job he did as SEC chair with traditional assets and securities, but I can definitely speak to the job he did with our ecosystem and Bitcoin and crypto, and I think he did an awful job as the SEC chair trying to navigate this ship of Bitcoin and crypto. Losing this job will probably be because of that, and he's got nobody to blame for him but himself for that. I believe it was yesterday. It could have been yesterday or the day before. Mike Novogratz appeared on Bloomberg and was interviewed. And he talked specifically about the idea of a Bitcoin strategic reserve and his thoughts. I won't play the video. I'll just kind of give you the TLDR. He said that if the U.S. adopts a Bitcoin strategic reserve, which he thinks will still be difficult to do, even if they pass legislation, even if Trump wants to do it, the process and the red tape of actually making that a reality isn't as easy as just, signing a piece of paper. But he says that if it happens, and it could, that he thinks that will force other countries, because we have the world reserve currency with the United States dollar. If the U.S. decided to make Bitcoin a reserve asset, that would force other countries to do the exact same thing, which would then cause what many of us kind of call the Bitcoin super cycle. He didn't use those words, but he said it would make Bitcoin rip extremely high, extremely fast. And he put a valuation of Bitcoin around 500,000 a coin. If something like that were to happen, where it was put on the balance sheet of the United States, a Bitcoin strategic reserve asset, and other countries started to follow suit, and that just became a thing. And he also talked as well about his thoughts in regards to the gold market cap and the Bitcoin market cap, which he's talked about in the past. Even the Winklevoss twins have been tweeting about this too, because what people will talk about is that Bitcoin will flip gold's market cap, and when people were first talking about that, obviously gold's market cap was much less because gold is now trading somewhere close to its all-time high, 2,500, 2,600. But back when gold was in the 17, 1800s, it would have took like a $400,000 or $500,000 Bitcoin to flip gold, and now because gold's market cap is higher, it's going to take around an 8 to 880,000 plus Bitcoin valuation price to flip gold. And he was talking about that he still believes that's inevitable, and he said that that's today's prices. By the time Bitcoin starts to move, gold's market cap may move, so you may be talking about $1 million plus Bitcoin required to flip gold's market cap. And the reason why that was talked about more so this week is because Bitcoin flipped momentarily, at least when it was at the all-time high of 93K, flipped silver. Silver, I think, is 1.75 trillion. I might be off by a couple hundred million, and momentarily Bitcoin flipped it and hit 1.78 or 1.79 trillion. So the market cap of Bitcoin passed the market cap of gold, at least momentarily, while it was trading in the 90s. So once it did that, then the conversation started up again in regards to flipping gold, which is the gold standard, no pun intended, for a lot of Bitcoiners to feel validated to get to the point where the market cap of Bitcoin reaches or passes the market cap of gold. Rich, so being somewhat, I mean, I know you're the producer of a Bitcoin podcast, but being somewhat of an outsider, not a guy that's like immersed in Bitcoin charts and in content every single day.
Right.
What was your perception of the last week in regards to Bitcoin going from the 60s to the 90s, price wise?
Yeah, like I kind of expected it. The markets react to political things. So Trump being elected pretty much easily, in the sense that it wasn't like we had to wait 6 weeks or something to find out. It was like we knew that day, essentially. I think that caused a shift in that whole concept that people realizing, okay, this is my time. Like, I think people were always on the fence about waiting to see what happens with certain things. So in my mind, it was going to happen. I was kind of surprised when you told me that it hit 90, went over 90 briefly. I thought I saw it in around 83, 84, 85, whatever it was that I saw. And I wasn't really surprised. And I think a lot of it, too, is good for the markets because the markets jumped a lot, just the regular markets. And I think that's because they also recognize that Gensler's going to be gone. We're going to get a new Fed chair, so interest rates will change. Like there's going to be a lot of changes. And I think people were waiting to see what happened with the election. So people were like, all right, this is the time to do the things they were going to do. And it was funny because you and I talked about this, I think maybe last week or maybe 2 weeks ago. And I kind of said, like, I think one of the things that Elon's going to be given is it'd be interesting if he is given a role within the government to look at the size of government. I said that a couple weeks ago. And I didn't invent that idea, but I saw that on Twitter myself. And that's going to be an interesting thing for me, what he does. I mean, there's been all kinds of reports about the Department of Education and some other things. Some of them I agree with, some of them I don't. But it's interesting. I think that it's kind of, this is what he said he was going to do. And I think people are now, I wasn't surprised that it shot up. And I was Googling it just now, but I couldn't remember the number because I checked it the other day. So there's about 2 million unmined Bitcoin. Is that what there is roughly? Before we run out, so to speak?
Less than that. There's, I think we've mined something past 19 million. Or no, we mined something past 19 million
right?
In the last 100 years. So by, what's the 21? So it'll be 2040, which is 14 years from now.
Right.
16 years from now. 16 years from now, the last million will be mined.
Right.
So we're somewhere, I think 19 and a half. Actually, that's a good question. I don't know the precise number and I kind of want to know now.
Right. So I guess the point is that, and more will be mined along the way before it runs. It's done. Mm-hmm. But like if somebody,
the total as of right now is 19,874,725.
Right.
Yeah.
So for a government, New York State, California, Texas, whoever, to put it on their reserve sheet, how do they do that? Where do they, like, I guess that's my outsider question.
Good question.
Only so much.
Good question, because
how are they going to get access if there's more, if the demand is more than is actually available?
Yes, because Senator Loomis, her plan that she wants to present, that Trump seems to be supporting, is that we have 200,000 right now from Silk Road that are on that the government owns. She wants in the next 4 years to go from 200,000 to 1 million on the strategic reserve. So she wants to buy another 800,000 in the next 4 years. It's good in theory, but it becomes problematic because of what you're saying, that you have companies like MicroStrategy, and there's other like people, the 1 million coins that Satoshi has on the Genesis block that are his coins. Then you have, not to mention, anywhere depending on who you talk to and who does any on-chain metrics looking, 3 to 5 million that people think are just either lost.
Right.
People lost the coins or lost the
ability to
seed
access
phrases
it. Yeah,
and don't have access. So if we, on the low end, if we think that there's 3 million that are lost, then that brings the total to 16.9. If we think there's 5 million lost, that brings it to 14,000,009. Then you have entities like MicroStrategy that have, they're on their own, they have like 220,000. Then you have other places like El Salvador on a smaller scale, but they're buying it every single day. The U.S. government already owns 200,000 coins. Then you have Binance that has that has coins on their balance sheet, and all these other like entities that have a lot of coins. And then individuals like me that are just never going to sell. And there's only a certain amount of coins that are mined every single day for new ones into the ecosystem that miners are going to sell to try to stay profitable and keep the lights on. So as the price goes up. As the want to the demand goes up, the price has to go up,
right?
Which makes it more difficult to get those 800,000 coins.
So for Pennsylvania, the U.S. government, whoever, to try to get more, they're going to have to go to an entity. They're going to have to go to a corporation, a large organization, because they can't go to you. It would take them forever. That's inefficient. They're going to go to a large corporation that has some.
What ends up happening is the reason why the nations adopting them makes the price go up so much is because when you have big money coming after something, it naturally, because now it's like, oh, they want it.
Right.
And if they want it, that means it's valuable.
Yeah.
That means the price goes up. So if you want what I have, you have to give me a price. There's a price where people right now, the price of Bitcoin is 88,455. That's the price that the market is willing to sell at. That there's people in the market willing to sell at. So there has to be enough. That price has to go high enough where somebody like me or thinks like me is willing to part with their Bitcoin.
Right.
So the prices everybody's got a price, right? Everybody has a price. So even people that say they're not going to sell, I mean, I don't know. Like honestly, to be completely transparent. If I woke up tomorrow and Bitcoin was $1 million a coin, I don't know how I would, like I say that I never want to sell. Right. And it's been easy to say that because like, even though we have these like $10,000, we had the first ever almost $10,000 move in 24 hours. The biggest day ever was 8,300. We saw it go from one 24-hour period, right? That's a lot. But if we had like a $900,000 day, I don't know how I would feel about seeing that and what that would make me do to liquidate some for something. I don't know. I say that I wouldn't, but like greed's a powerful thing. So the higher the price goes, the more you have people that say they'll never do something be like, man, this is a hard price to say no to.
Right.
So,
and there will be some folks that'll be like, I'm just going to put it into I'll take this money and I'll roll it into something else because I can make money off of this more than I expected that I would be able to do at this current time. And again, like from the concept of inflation, in 20 years, if it gets to a cool level, yeah, but in 20 years, because of the price point of inflation, that amount that could be really cool in the next 2-3 years won't be as cool in 20 years because inflation. So that money won't seem the same. So there are some folks that will make that, but it still feels like for all these institutions that suddenly want to get into it, I just doesn't seem like to me like they have to be able to find it. It's not like land where you can go and buy the land. Like you have to go, I guess it is like land in the sense that you have to go and find land that's for sale. There isn't land that isn't owned at this point, like basically the United States. It's not like the government owns it, so they already own it.
Land is a good example.
If they want to go to Texas and say there's a farm, there's whatever, we're going to buy this land up. It's almost the same thing. They have to go to a corporation that has a ridiculous amount.
Land is a good example. If you want to go to downtown Niagara Falls right now and buy 6th, 7th, 8th, and 9th Street.
Yeah.
The 3 blocks, city blocks, right? You're going to pay a vastly different price than if you go to Manhattan and you start looking for real estate on Madison Avenue.
Yeah.
Right? Madison Avenue is highly coveted. So if Madison Avenue is highly coveted, you got to come into that place with a price that's big enough for somebody that owns that to be like,
and a lot of
I don't want to
corporations-
sell,
right.
but that's a price that I can't say no
There's
to.
a lot of corporations that own ridiculous amounts of property in Manhattan, for example, and
they'll never sell
and
it.
it's empty. It's empty,
But they're not gonna sell it.
because they know, because they own other things that are, well, they'll take an empty building for 20 years because they don't want to lower the value of that building by lowering the rent or whatever. So it'd be some of those types. And I guess those corporations that own that property are going to be like those people that own those companies that own Bitcoin. They're like, no, I'm not buying it from you. Or I'll buy it from you, but this is what I want from you in return.
Right.
And
So
that's where you'll get yourself, the
there
governments will get
are-
themselves in trouble if they start making deals with these companies.
there are places you can go where you can offer more than the price of Bitcoin to like right now the price is 88,000. There's platforms you can go to and offer somebody 95 grand for their Bitcoin because they don't want to sell and you just offer them a premium because you want it that bad.
Right.
And you see the potential and you know that 88 isn't going to get them to sell, but if you offer them 95,
Right.
the right person, not everybody, but somebody might buy it to you for that.
Yeah, I don't think everybody's like all in and they're trying to move that money into something else that they want to do something with. So there are those people. I just feel like there's just so much that sounds like they want. I just don't know where they're getting it. It's nice to say that, oh, we're going to get to this level, but I don't know if they can realistically.
I had a couple DMs yesterday when the price was moving again, when it got to 93. A couple of people were asking me if I thought it was going to get to 100 yesterday. And I didn't hesitate. I had no thoughts that it would reach 100 yesterday. I just don't think we're at that point yet. Yep. Like I don't think the market's ready for that. Nor do I think that we're at the point of the cycle where we hit that. I mean, I'm always open to be wrong, and I could always potentially be wrong.
Comment. Did you see the comment?
Let me see. Can you read it to me? Because I saw the top one, but the
comment says, but the USD is also just an investment. If Bitcoin becomes the reserve currency, it will be less volatile and basically like the USD. No reason to sell.
I 100% agree with that. I personally, I 100% agree with that. Even though I agree with that comment, I do have to look at how other people think of it. Because not all actors in our market are rational.
Right.
That's a super rational comment, and that's exactly what I think. But a majority of I don't know if maybe a majority, but there's a significant amount of holders of Bitcoin that don't feel that way, and that's why we're only at 88,000 right now.
Right.
That's why that's why yesterday I was like, we're not getting to 100 because there's still so many people that own it that have a price in mind to sell. And I've said this many times too. I strongly believe when we hit 100, we'll go past and then we'll dip. Because I think there's a lot of people that have sell orders at 100 because it's such a psychologically important number. And it's such I'm not selling till 100 or there's so many people
they get
that
to that benchmark. And
there's even people like I've seen
all of
like
a sudden it almost floods the market.
I've seen 100K like celebration parties that people are like planning and want to have and stuff like that. And even Troy, me and Troy were talking last night about like whenever it happens, like randomly jumping on a Zoom and going live just to like celebrate it, which like it's cool.
It's
like
a cool number, but like to me,
it's not a sell number.
It's
like,
not a sell.
No.
It's just a number. Like it's just
a psychological
it's a benchmark. Yeah,
it's a psychological number. But
it's because 3 digits, but it doesn't. It's like like the first time I got my check and I had passed 100,000. Like it happened a couple times.
Yeah.
But it was like but it wasn't like now I'm rich. It wasn't like yesterday I was poor and now I can go buy anything I want. So it was just kind of a nice accomplishment, but I don't know. It's funny because I guess, I've listened to you guys talk and, and I follow it a lot closer now. And I just don't think I understand. And I don't mean the corporations. I mean like the average guy, the average gal that's following this stuff and that's buying. And I think that, and correct me if I'm wrong, do you think that there are a high percentage of people that just like aren't going to sell?
yes,
I feel like they're in it like you're in it for a specific reason about generational wealth, not trading.
I can't speak for because you have your top 10 holders. I think I can speak for MicroStrategy. I think Michael Saylor is a good actor and means what he says when he says he's going to hold it for 100 years and never sell. But I don't know Michael Saylor. And to be fair, like he came in my third. I was already in for 2 cycles. He came in the third cycle I was in. So I've been in longer than him. He owns way more than I'll ever own. But like I can't speak for the largest holders. But I think there's a lot of people like me that are way down the spectrum of what they hold that are just not going to, that just will never sell. Because to some, like Michael Saylor was a billionaire before Bitcoin.
Right.
Like Bitcoin was like a game changer for me personally.
Right.
And I think there's a lot of people out there that feel the same. And it's not even just about the money and stuff like that. This is more philosophical and spiritual, I think, which I'm not super spiritual per se, but I think I can be a little bit philosophical. I think that there's like an entity that Bitcoin is that we like don't want to disrespect almost. Like you don't want to turn your back on something that's been so good to you.
Yeah.
Maybe that's spiritual, but I think it's philosophical. But again, it could be both. But beyond just the amount of money I see when I open up my portfolio and I look at, it's just like what it's done for me and allowed me. Like I was thinking about this before I came in today and we were filming, and I'm just like, my investments, like even the little bit of traditional investments that I have in my crypto, like I'm sitting on a decent amount of like wealth there. Yet like I work a job of like where I get paid commission and I live paycheck to paycheck, and there's some months where like you're cash poor, like you struggle.
No,
right?
Yeah.
And I would never, no matter what, like I wouldn't commit a crime. I don't want to say that on a podcast that we're taping live, but I would do many other things before I would ever have to. And I have a family. Like I'm a married guy with 2 kids, family of 4, a teenager and a preteen. Like shit's expensive.
Yeah.
House, mortgage, cars. Like
let me
we
compare it
got
to my
bills.
situation. I'm a little older than you. I'm retired. I have my pension. I have a very good, I think a pretty good investment portfolio. I think I did pretty well with it. But I'm not touching it. I'm not touching it until I absolutely have to. Like at this point, if like I needed money tomorrow, I really think I would go back to work. Like if I really needed money, like something really happened and I needed to be making, because I don't make a lot of money doing this. This is just shits and giggles. If I wanted to make money, I'd probably go back and work at a school. I'd probably go back to teaching. I'd go back in because right now I could go back in and still get my pension because there's a thing right now because the teaching shortage is so low. Or I could go teach privately and make some money there. And I think I'd get a job because I was a good teacher. So, but I would do that before I started pulling money out of my pension. I mean, I've taken little things out. We redid the kitchen or something like that. I'm not talking that. I'm talking about like monthly to live off of stuff. Like I'm not touching that until I absolutely have to because I know I'm 57. I know when I'm 77, I can't do that. I can't go back. Nobody's gonna. I can't walk into some private school and say, "Hey, Kitty,
let me ask you something."
Like I'm the same way with my investments. Like they're there and they're cool and it's nice, but I'm not touching them.
Let me ask you something. Let's pretend Bitcoin doesn't exist. Let's not talk about anything just in particular per se. Let's say you owned something that was super ultra rare and everybody really wanted it. It could be a sports card. It could be it just forget what the item is, but you own something that was coveted by so many people,
right.
And beyond the value of it, you were just like, I can't wait till I'm gone and like I pass this on to my kids and they're just like,
right.
Thank you, Dad, for giving me this.
Right.
Whatever that thing would be in your mind, how many other avenues would you explore before you got to the place where you were so hard up, where you'd be like, I gotta sell this?
Yeah.
You would think you would just do everything you could to make sure that that's that you would never have to get rid of that, right?
And that's the thing. Like
that's how I feel about
Mickey
Bitcoin.
Mantle card. I guess that's the thing people always talk about. Mickey Mantle. I'm not a baseball guy, so I'd sell that Mickey Mantle card tomorrow. You would have to. I mean, for me, because I'm not a baseball guy. People, you're crazy. I'm like,
that's why I don't want to use anything like that.
But I know, but it's funny. Like I'm trying to think if there is something. Not the specifics of it don't matter. There is a philosophical feeling to something like Bitcoin, your investments, that you understand why you did it. Like I want to be able to, in when I don't know, at some point I'd like to be able to put a little bit of money aside for my grandchildren if I have them in 529s. If my sons get married and they start having kids, I'm going to definitely take some money.
We can talk on the side about the 529.
Whatever. But
I know what you mean.
But something that
I wouldn't recommend the
skip
529.
the kids and go to the grandkids. Like I know, like in the case of when my dad did the 529s for my kids, I mean they were incredibly helpful. So if I find a different whatever the product is,
no, I know what you mean.
But yeah. I wanna almost. I've told my sons, I'm like, if you get kids, I'm gonna skip you, and some of it's gonna go directly to them. No offense to you or your wife, but I'm gonna skip because I want to say I want those kids to know, like I did with my dad. That shit came from Papa.
Yeah.
Like that's what I want, and that to me is that. So that's why a lot of that money that I don't touch that money, because when I decide, okay, I'm going to get to a point in my life, we're going to have my wife and I will have one car. We'll downsize the house. We won't be traveling. Like our expenses go down to nothing. Like my mother is 85. The amount of money she needs at 85 is significantly less at this point. So at that point, I'm going to start saying, okay, now I need to start doing things with this, because while I can still, mentally make those decisions to move it. And that's probably, I think I'm going to have to get to that point to come around all the way around the block. That's when I have to get to that point. That would be when I'm going to sell that thing, because now I realize it's time to move it so it goes to the next person.
An aside of what you just said, you know what my favorite product to sell in my day job is? That I honestly make it's financially terrible for me because I make the least money doing it, and it's my favorite product. When somebody agrees to do it, I feel the better than that. I mean, okay, when I make a big sale, like obviously I feel good about that. That feels good for a different reason, but it's a different feeling when I sit down with a parent or grandparent and we do a juvenile policy, and you see like how good they feel. And I honestly, it's the least I make on anything I do. And and probably to a detriment, because I like it so much and I like doing it, I've sold it the most out of anything that I've sold. which might be why I'm living like month to month. But I just love like like you just said, like you're sitting with a grandparent, they don't have a lot. And it's like, in 10 years or whenever, when I'm gone and they get this thing and they're going to be like, what is this from? And it's like, oh, grandpa thought it was a good idea to put a couple dollars away for you. And this is what you have. And if you would like, you can continue to do it, or you can just take this cash. And you're just like, oh, really? Like, I can't believe it. And it will be more significant than the little contribution you made and agreed to when you sat down with me. But in 10, 20 years, when they open that up and mom and dad tells them that, Grandpa Rich decided to do this, like knowing, like seeing that in the future and knowing that I was like a little part of that. Like, I love that. I love that feeling.
We had interesting about that because like Maria had an uncle, my wife had an uncle who passed away, and he never had any kids, and he had a fair amount of money. So he gave all his nieces and nephews a certain amount of money, and this was after he died. So the money came, and it said like, this is for your kids. So I forget what it was and the amount. I'm not going to say what the amount was, but we took the amount and I said, what do you want to do with this? She's like, well, I want it to be for the boys for college. I said, okay. So we put it in, and they were little. I mean, they were maybe like 4 or 5 each. So we put it in just a regular M&T investment type thing, and it, more than doubled by the time they went to college, and it paid for, it paid for a part of their college. And then they were like, hey, we got this money for you. And they're like, who is it from? And it was like Uncle Ernie. And they're like, who's Uncle Ernie? And I'm like, and then we told them the story about Uncle Ernie, and they were like, oh, that's pretty cool. We never met Uncle. They were like, oh, no, he was gone before you were, And so, I mean, Ernie's gone, but like my wife felt very good about it. I think like it felt good. Like the kids like knew, well, I had this guy I never met who just thought that his family was important. I mean, that's a great lesson for my children, so it is like, that's a cool little thing that I totally appreciate, like the joy that that guy must have felt when he was setting up, however he did that through his, his estate, however he did it. I'm sure he felt very good about, like, and he knew that he wasn't going to see, it wasn't like he knew somebody was going to come back and, hey, thanks, man, I appreciate that. He knew he was never going to see that end of it. And that's kind of a cool thing.
It is.
And I think that's, again, why some people aren't going to sell at 100. They're going to sell when it really makes sense to them on a spiritual level. I think that's really, you're right. I think you've really touched upon it, that there's something about this product, the Bitcoin specifically, that is, It's more than just, it's not just buying land or a painting or gold. Like there's something different about it. I think that's why it's growing like it is.
I texted my parents when it passed 90, the first time it passed 90 a couple days ago, and like it was all over. Like obviously, like even my parents were like, "Oh, like how I can't believe like what's going on." Like people are texting me like kind of when this stuff kind of happens, and I texted them. I said, "You know what?" I said, and this is like true, like from in my adult life, like I've had a lot of like setbacks in my adult life. A fair number of them have been things that I've done to myself, just like getting in my own way. And it's been tough. Like adulthood has been tough for me, and I've gotten things wrong, and I think I've gotten stronger each time that I've done something. And I I think I'm a good dad. I think I'm a good husband, and like all that kind of stuff. And it's like you keep trucking through, and it's like all the mistakes I've made, all the things I've done wrong. I said I got one thing extremely correct that I think is better than all the things that I've done wrong. Like I was right about this one thing. And it's like, and I'm going to have this one thing change the rest of my family's legacy.
Because I'm sure, like, you've been going to like 4th of July parties and bullshit like that, and people are like, "Oh, there's Don with the Bitcoin," and I'm sure there's that aspect of it. And you are not the kind of guy, like I told you, you're not that kind of guy.
Every bear market, people are just like, like especially this last one, like when it went from 69 to 16, like I was an idiot. Like you're an idiot. Like what's wrong with you? And then when it went from 16 to 30, did you sell yet? Because you doubled. It's like, no, I'm not. What do you mean you're not selling? Like what are you talking about?
And now they're like, maybe he was onto something. And it is funny because it's kind of like, like we all have that buddy that has a team that they root for.
Yeah.
That's not like a team that makes any sense because it's like they root for the Houston Astros or something. What's their connection? And for some other reason, they have some goofy connection. So it's funny. Like I have a friend whose favorite baseball team for whatever reason is the Houston team. And when they had that run, like whenever they win, I just text them. I'm like, "Hey, there!" I was happy for him. Like I don't like baseball. I don't watch baseball, so I don't have a horse in the race. But it was always funny. Like, my buddy Rich, he loves Houston. I don't know why, because I think it was those stupid uniforms back in the '70s. Mm-hmm. But it was like it's almost like I'm sure there's a lot of people that know you, and I'm the same way. I guess when I see Bitcoin, I'm like, well, Don and Troy are having a good day. Like I kind of laugh about that because it's like that's my connection to Bitcoin even more than.
The biggest
you because I'm like I'm rooting for it for you.
The big misconception.
all your fans.
the big misconception, like when Bitcoin is doing stuff like this, is that for some weird reason, like people think like my life is changing. It's like if Bitcoin were to hit 300,000 tomorrow, like nothing. I can't go buy anything different. I can't I'm not selling it. So there's like no. I look at my phone and I feel richer, but. I'm not. There's nothing.
And if it has a bad day,
same thing.
It's the same thing. That's the same with my investments.
Yes.
Like I'm. People were very nervous about this current administration and what was going to happen with the stock market, and it ended up being great. And then it was great under Trump. Like it's generally for me. I've had a very good. What are we up to now? Like. Really, since
16 years?
Yeah, like really, I've had a really
since 2009?
Nice. Yeah, like, and I'm like, shit, like now, and as you know, off camera, we're doing things to because it's like I'm having a nice run here, but like I'm not going to be, I'm not going to be winning the championship every year. But not that every year has been great because obviously there was a couple years we were down a little bit, but there is that aspect of even if it's a bad year. That's why I have friends that look at this shit every single day, and I'm like, why are you looking? Like you're not Pat. You've got 10 years to go before you retire. Like don't worry about it because you're probably not going to even touch it when you retire. Like if based on your pension, if you're leaving at 65 or whenever you decide to collect Social Security, like in addition, like you're going to be okay. Like don't worry about it. Just keep putting it in. Maybe make sure you decide if you're putting in too much or not enough. But just you can't worry about like, again, I'm 57 and I'm really not planning to pull anything significant on. And when I do, it's going to only be like, just to meet the difference in my monthly costs. When my pension no longer and Social Security no longer covers that.
Yeah.
Or if I have some medical thing that I have to do that isn't covered. I don't know.
All right. Robert Breedlove, the What Is Money podcast, tweeted early this morning. Bitcoin is becoming everyone's favorite money because it doesn't play favorites. So I thought that was a good tweet to share. Troy's not here. I was going to bring this up for him, but the ETH to BTC ratio is less than 1% above its 4-year lows. So Ethereum is significantly underperforming this cycle. The price would typically be higher as Bitcoin moves, and it's. I mean, it did get above 3,000, and I think it hit when Bitcoin was at 90. It was at like 33, maybe 34. As we sit right now at this podcast, Bitcoin's at 88,800 and ETH is at 3153. It's the ratio is definitely underperforming, and I would have been curious to get Troy's take on why he thinks that's happening. I have my own ideas, but I'm not as well versed in those shit coins to really have an educated opinion on it. It's probably more biased, so I'll save that for when he comes back on. Bitcoin for Freedom tweeted at 5:51 a.m. The Bitcoin price is a sign of adoption. The current adoption is 0.4%. We're only getting started. I'm assuming that that's global adoption. I feel like it's higher. That seems like a super low number. I didn't think it was under 1%. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe because I'm thinking of like that he's talking about just Bitcoin. Maybe just the Bitcoin only people is 0.4, and crypto would make up. The whole crypto would make up more. I'm not really too sure. I don't get too deep in the weeds in the specifics of how many people are actually allocated just to Bitcoin and own it. And I know it's a little difficult because people have multiple wallets. Like one person can have multiple wallets, and it doesn't necessarily mean each wallet represents one person. So I think it's kind of hard to know exactly how many people own. So, but it's still low. It's still really, really, really low. But I don't know the exact specifics. And another tweet that I found really interesting that I want to talk a little bit about. I don't know if you remember, Rich, when the ETFs, I mean, it's been 10 months now because the ETFs were January. I can't believe it's been that long now. When the ETFs were listed and approved, one of the big brokerage houses was on the outside looking in. They didn't get an ETF, and they even tweeted that they would never list one, and they didn't want to allocate any, and they took a lot of shit for it, took a lot of heat, and they lost a lot of customers that went to other brokerage houses that did offer it. So that was Vanguard. Okay. And this tweet's showing, remember how Vanguard promised to never list Bitcoin ETFs? And then it has, check out the second largest holder of MicroStrategy stock. And it's Vanguard.
Yeah.
So Vanguard owns the second.
Never say never, and that's it.
But
that's just stupid.
But what's wild is,
I mean, because like your job is to know what you need to buy and not be, because it sounded like I didn't remember that ever happening, but it's like it sounded like when what you just said sounded like they were pretty petty. They're mad about it, or some politician told them not to do it, or whatever it was. Whatever.
Well, you have to remember, like January of this year, Biden's the president. You're thinking Biden's going to make a run. You're thinking Biden has at that time, decent shot of being, with the way the country was going. like you thought, I was thinking it, that the chances were probably better in Biden's favor to be reelected than it was for Trump, because Trump is a pariah. I mean, I think, as an aside really quick, I don't want to get off on too big of a tangent. I think like we're going to have like documentaries.
Oh, I can't wait for these.
About how big of a comeback it was for Trump to become president.
It's a combination. It's going to be really interesting.
He was January of 2021. Yeah. He was a pariah.
It's going to be
politically
pretty interesting when they really do the research and real journalists write some books about this shit. About
do they still exist?
What happened? There are some good people out there that write some stuff that are neutral, and if nobody buys their books. But I'll be looking forward to that type of stuff. People that really did the analysis of what went right, what went wrong, what were key moments. I guarantee you that Bitcoin will be one of those things that was in there. It's definitely going to be something that's going to. We'll know, I think, within 6 months, like what were some of the deciding factors on things. And when they give, because you're already seeing some lists from exit polls and shit that are starting to come out. But when they really do studies, you're going to start to see that as they break down the economy, like, okay, what do you mean by the economy? Like, was it egg prices, whatever the heck it was, housing? I think you're going to find that Bitcoin's going to end up being, in crypto in general, is going to be a thing that they wanted the government to embrace. And didn't feel like they were, a lot of young people are not happy with what's happening. So I think that's going to be something that's going to show up.
I tweeted yesterday that because Senator Loomis's bill is basically, I don't know if it's actually physically, but sitting on Biden's desk, like he could sign it. And I said, if Biden were to sign the Bitcoin Strategic Reserve Bill in the next 2 months before he leaves office, it has the potential to completely change his legacy as president. And he would go from what I believe to be the second worst president in history to potentially viewed at maybe 30, 40, 50 years from now. Maybe not necessarily the next 5 or 10 because people are still alive to know how shitty he was. But to people that weren't like living through the presidency, when they look back, they'd be like, man, Biden was a great president. He's the guy that signed the Bitcoin Strategic Reserve Bill and brought forth all that we've seen in the last 20, 30, 40 years. I don't think he realizes, I honestly don't think I don't think he realizes a lot of things. That's an aside. But the people that are handling him, or the people that are responsible for, telling him when it's time to eat ice cream, I don't think they realize how big of an impact it could have to his presidency and his legacy for him to make one of his last acts going out of office to sign that bill into law for the United States. He could steal some of the thunder of Trump coming in to sign the Bitcoin Strategic Bill into law and have his legacy be known as the president that kickstarted the United States government from making Bitcoin a reserve on the balance sheet and starting the Bitcoin Strategic Reserve, which brought forth years after buying of Bitcoin, which got somewhere close to the million that they're trying to get, which helped eliminate debt, which helped make the United States a major player on the stage, which helped Bitcoin's price reach X amount of. There's so much that could potentially be that I just don't, unfortunately, think there's enough smart people around him to be like, hey, you should do this. This is a good idea on the way out.
Of all the things that he'll do in the 2 months, whatever, it won't be that. Like, I'd just be surprised. Like, I would be shocked. Yeah,
I would be shocked.
The things that he'll do are just, they'll be stupid stuff, like pardon somebody. That'll be the extent of it. Like, he won't do it.
Hopefully his son. I just think it's ridiculous if he doesn't pardon his son.
He will, but it'll be the last day. It'll be like he'll sign that, he'll put the pen down, and he'll walk out the office. Like,
he has to do that, right?
He has to.
How do you not do that?
And you know what?
How do you not do that?
Pardon your damn kid.
Yeah, how do you not do that?
The kids already had the kids. The kids. I mean,
who cares how it looks politically?
Who cares?
Yeah,
he was. I mean, there's a million politicians' kids that have all who've done better and worse things.
What if he pardons Trump? That would be wild.
The funny thing about it is the Supreme Court kind of already did that.
He didn't.
A sense,
no, not really.
It would be very difficult to prosecute based on the judgment.
The pardon would be more symbolic than anything.
Pardon for what though? Because there's like
he's been committed. If you pardon,
there's several things.
But if you pardon him, the 34 convictions go. You're pardoned from that conviction. It's like eradicated. You're not.
I thought you meant just any of the thing that he'd been charged for, because there's other charges in other places too that maybe never went. That weren't convicted, so you're
pardoning from the conviction that they can't technically sentence him for because he's president now.
Right.
But I think symbolically, if you're really that's another thing that I think would be good for his legacy as well, because then it would be like, all right, like he said he was a uniter. He didn't do as much as he was going to do, but his last act going out was pardoning the next guy coming in. I think politically it'd be. Honestly, like, I don't know why he just does whatever he wants and doesn't listen, because
I was thinking that about a minute and a half ago. Like, if I was in this situation, like, first of all, He's 80, whatever. Like, he's not Jimmy Carter. Like, I mean, let's be honest. He's not going to, he's alive in 10 years. I'll be surprised. He's going to go home now. Like, he's done. We're never going to see him ever again. As well he should. He should have gone home a while back. And like, why wouldn't you say, screw everybody. I did all this shit for you. I could have been sitting home. You guys really made me do this, blah, blah, blah.
Now I'm
blah,
doing
blah.
what I want.
Like, I'm going to
yeah.
do what I want. So it'd be interesting if he did some things that he want. It was interesting. I read a lot of, and obviously they sat alone yesterday.
And it looked
just
like
two of
super,
them for like 90 minutes.
And it looked super cordial. Like it was like
and you and I aren't fond of either one of them,
no.
but the country
was
needs
good.
a little bit of that.
They were laughing.
Yeah.
They were like
Yeah.
you could tell it wasn't like they were just like having
Yeah,
conversation.
they weren't in there like Fight Club.
I want to say I mean maybe it's optics, but like if you muted it and you watched, because I was like,
you
watching,
wouldn't have known.
it looked like they were
Yeah.
genuinely enjoying each other's
Yeah.
company of just like having a conversation. And again, I said that I always
think
say
there
this.
are some things that Biden is trying would have said to implore him about the things that are important to him, and I have some ideas what they are, and I don't want to go down that road. But I definitely think there are some things like, if you're going to do anything, can you do this? Like, I think there are things that he's going to try to have. This is his chance to say, listen, you and I just have, there's nobody around. There's no cameras. There's no, like, my wife's not here. Your wife's not here. Let's just, nothing about our freaking kids. Like, let's just talk about, like, a couple things that I think you should be careful about and I don't know if it's Middle East. I don't know what it is, but it'd be nice if they had that, regardless of Republican, regardless of Democrat, these are things that are important to the country. That's what I would hope happened.
At the end of the day, you got to think about like, there's only 40 something people in history
That's a pretty
that
exclusive
understand
club. Yeah.
how hard that job is.
Yeah.
Like we can guess and try to like conceptualize how hard it is, but like they know how hard the job is and how demanding and grueling that job is.
Look how old they
So
look when they
you
leave.
got
Like,
you got what? There's like 5 or 6 of them that are still alive.
yeah, something like that. Yeah,
So like
not even.
if you want to talk about certain things, there's only like 5 or 6 people on the planet that could ever understand the conversation that you would have. And 2 of those guys were in the room together yesterday. So like you can feel however you want to feel politically. And a lot of the shit is theater for us, I think.
Oh,
like
yeah.
I don't know if they necessarily feel, look at in 16, like he was talking about like jailing Hillary and all this. And it's like, and then he got in office and he didn't do any of that stuff. He's just like, all right, I won. Like, I don't need to go overboard and do all that shit. So,
Well, and the funny thing about all that stuff is that a lot of the decisions and stuff trickle down. And let's be honest, rich people rarely get convicted unless there's, unless they're really, they got rich and they really don't have legacy money. Like, you know what I mean? Like the guys that get rich that aren't really, they're rich, but they're not really one of us. So we go after those kinds of guys and those, whether on both sides. And so, yeah, I think that there is still kind of that. The people that think there's like that Star Chamber kind of concept in the United States where there's these guys and they got hoods on and they're sitting around. I don't think it's that, but I do think that there is definitely kind of like this kind of, wink, wink, nudge, nudge behind the scenes about they're all rich and powerful and they all they do stuff because it's good theater. They keep us, it's bread and circuses that keep us occupied.
yeah, I mean, I don't know, man. It's going to be very interesting the next couple months before he's out as a lame duck, like a legit lame duck.
Yeah.
Like I don't think we'll hear much of him again after he leaves until he dies. Maybe
No, we
probably won't hear much.
He's not big guy. We won't see him, yeah, go home.
Yeah,
Like go whether he's around too long, but you did your thing. Go home now. And I was a Reagan kid. Like I grew up with Reagan as my president, and it was. I remember when they released that statement when his last public statement about having Alzheimer's and all that stuff, and we all kind of knew it was a thing. But he was like, "I'm out of public life now," and it was kind of sad because like. He's problematic as a person, partially his generation, partially some of the decisions he made. But at the same time, I do think he really loved the country. And I think that he really thought what he was doing was best for the country. And I like a lot of the things that he did. And he loved his wife. And I just think that like seeing anybody go through what he did at the end, like that last letter to the kind of the public was like, it was, it's sad. Like, like you did your bit. And okay, like you said, like there's very few people that have had that job, and we can all talk about this, we can all talk about that, but like that's a tough job. Like, you know.
All right, man. On that note, we're at the end. Like every other week, we'll tell you the same thing. Don't trust, verify. See you next week.